Hello everyone and welcome to DC Central. In today's video we're going to be breaking down and reviewing Arrow Season 7 Episode 11, otherwise entitled Past Sins. And if you have not seen the episode, make sure you do that before you watch this review, as it will be filled with spoilers. We'll be here when you get back. So the first major talking point when it comes to this episode is we had a very special director for this episode, that being John Diggle himself, David Ramsey. This was David Ramsey's directorial debut, and I have to say I was very impressed with what he did. In particular, the one fight scene we got with the squad, I think that was very well directed. I'd have to go back and watch it, but I'm pretty sure that it was one take, or at least it came across like one take. I may be completely wrong there, but I'd have to go back and rewatch it. But even so, even if it wasn't, I think overall this episode was really well directed, and for David Ramsey's directorial debut, I think he did a fantastic job. I can't wait to see if they get him to direct some more. Like, on The Flash, we've had Tom Cavanaugh direct quite a few episodes. Danielle Panabaker is also directing later on in the season, so it's really nice that Arrow is now getting involved with that with David Ramsey. I'd love to see Stephen Amell direct an episode, so, it seems like Arrow's finally stepping into that, and for David Ramsey being the first to do it, I think he did a great job. So, speaking of the squad, that is one of the big things going into this episode, is that Diggle and Lila are looking to reinstate the Ghost Initiative, otherwise known as the Suicide Squad. We get a funny little reference to the Suicide Squad thanks to Curtis, and I have to say this was really cool. I mean, the Suicide Squad, or the Ghost Initiative as they're being called now, is not a big part of this episode. They're going to be coming a bit more full frontal later on, it seems, in the episode, especially when we get to like episode 14, 15. But it was still cool just to see the seeds being planted. Like, Diaz was great in this episode. I really loved Kirk Acevedo once again. And we get little cameos, from Slade's son, Joe Wilson, China White, and also Carrie Cutter, aka Cupid. That I have to say my only negative for this episode is just Cupid being in it. I just hate that character. She hasn't changed one bit, and it's so annoying. I don't know why they chose, out of all the members they could have had from a previous squad to bring onto this one, why was it her? Why wasn't it Bronze Tiger? Like, Bronze Tiger was established earlier on, whatever. It's just, that's my only negative, but everyone else was great, and like I say, Diaz in particular really stood out, especially the scene when Diaz thinks he's escaped, and he actually kills Curtis. I was like, what? Like, full on, like, when he killed Curtis, I literally sat up in my seat. I was like, no way, especially because it's been rumored that Curtis is going to die this season, and apparently Echo Kellum hasn't been seen on set in a while, and I thought, no way have they just killed Curtis like that, because it came out of nowhere, and I was like, really? But then obviously it was actually revealed to be Curtis's like virtual reality thing, which I thought was really interesting, and actually really well handled, and actually something I think is really smart, and showed how clever Curtis actually is, because Curtis isn't used that well on this show, and I feel like this was one of the few moments where he really got to shine, and I like that. And again, just the seeds being planted for the Suicide Squad, I'm excited to see where they're going to go with this going forward. Just to bring these guys back is a great idea. Now, Laurel was also a big part of this episode, and I have to say I loved everything about this. We finally got some backstory for Earth 2 Laurel. For Black Siren, we finally got some backstory. I was so happy about this. We even get a flashback to Earth 2, which I was so happy about. Obviously, I made a video about this a few days ago, about Earth 2 Laurel and getting flashbacks and stuff. I don't know if this is all we're going to get. I don't know if we'll get any more with this. We know we are getting that Birds of Prey episode fairly soon this season, so maybe we'll get more of it there, but we got like a few seconds long of a flashback for Earth 2 Laurel, so better than nothing, but it was still something. And I liked her story, the fact we had like this guy who was actually this drunk driver. This is the drunk driver who killed Quentin on Earth 2, and we actually have the Earth 1 version basically being this anti-vigilante guy who's going after Laurel, thinking that she's the previous Black Canary, which obviously to the public of Star City she is. So I really liked that. And I have to say, Katie Cassidy, or Katie Cassidy Rogers, as she's now called, she was married recently, she was phenomenal in this episode, really good. Like, I was tearing up in a particular scene with her where she's talking about Quentin's death on Earth 2, and I just thought, yeah, this is amazing. Like, I need so much more of this. Like, I need so much more of Earth 2 Laurel. She's so interesting, and just her backstory really intrigues me, and I really hope we get more of that, because she's just so great. And I really hope we get to see some more from Earth 2 flashbacks, because it was so great to see that. And also the pairing of Laurel and Felicity once again shines in this episode. I think we said it a while back, episode 4, which was level 2. The dynamic between Laurel and Felicity, it's something that you think about and you wouldn't think it would work, but it works so well. Them two together as a pairing, I absolutely love, and they get to do some more stuff together in this episode. Like, with Laurel's storyline, Felicity is tied into it, and I think it's great. Again, just really putting Felicity in the best place she's ever been is with Laurel. Like, she's never been better than when she's with Laurel, and it's really awesome. And again, just giving Laurel and Katie Cassidy these amazing parts, I'm just loving it, and it was such a great part of this episode. So while Laurel was dealing with past sins, we also had Oliver dealing with past sins. Obviously, we did get the little bit at the start between him and Emiko, where basically Emiko was just kind of rejecting Oliver, rejecting his kind of interest, which I thought was interesting, but kind of expected. But going into his actual story, there's this guy who's going around killing people, and it's actually the son of Dave Hackett, and Dave Hackett was the guy who was on the Gambit with Robert and also Oliver, who Robert killed before turning the gun on himself. Like, this was actually really interesting, like, bringing back someone like that, because Hackett was just a character who was completely disposed of. Like, none of us really thought about it, but the fact that his son is still alive and is now angry at Oliver, for what he did, and, well, basically because he feels that Oliver is responsible, because obviously Robert killed him for Oliver, so he's now after Oliver for the death of his father. And again, I just love this, like, bringing Arrow back to the themes of sins of the father. That is what this show is about at its core, so to bring it back, like, this season is really doing that, bringing it back to its core values and its core themes, doing that again in this episode, sins of the father, Oliver again having to deal with what Robert did. I think it's so great to be back in that thing. I really enjoy that. My only kind of negative with this storyline is it feels a bit late. Like, it feels a bit, why are we dealing with this in season 7? Like, this would have been a good storyline in like season 2, season 3, but I don't know why we're doing it now in season 7, like, 12 years later. It feels really odd to me, like, why this is only happening now. But other than that, I still think it was a good storyline and something, definitely good for Oliver. And again, just bringing Arrow back to those core values is something that really excites me as an OG Arrow fan. I just really enjoy that. Now, there is a bit of a mystery going on in this episode, which is there's this person going around leaving all these threatening and scary notes for Laurel, basically just threatening her and saying that he's going to kill her and things like that. And at the very end of the episode, while Laurel is basically discovered that, oh yeah, this guy who's been following me is actually the Earth 1 version. This isn't the Earth 2 person who killed my father. This is the Earth 1 version. And, well, that wasn't it. I kind of expected that, to be honest. I kind of thought to myself, oh yeah, this is probably just the Earth 1 version. Like, why would it be the Earth 2 version? But, it turns out that he wasn't the guy leaving the notes, because somebody else actually leaves a note for Dinah. And it says, I'm going to kill you all one by one, or something like that. So who could this guy be? Well, when the episode first finished, my first initial thought was Stanley, which was obviously the guy who Oliver was in prison with. We know that he is Stanley Dover, which is the Star City Slayer from the comics. We know that episode 13 of this season, I believe it's episode 13, or it might be 14, but one of the upcoming episodes is called the Star City Slayer, so we know that we're going to be meeting Stanley outside of prison pretty soon. So that was my initial thought, and especially because he's, going after you one by one, I just kind of felt like that was a very serial killer thing to say. However, after watching the episode, I went then to watch the promo for the next episode, obviously, which is episode 12, 150, Emerald Archer. And in the promo, we actually see there's a guy who's going around hunting vigilantes. Like, he went after Emiko, he's going after Renee, and now he's going after Oliver. So I assume that's who this is. I assume that was a setup for the next episode, which would make a lot more sense. Especially, like, if you've seen the promo, you'll know what I mean. There's a guy, I think they called him the Anti-Vigilante. I think that's what they called him. So he's going around trying to hunt down all the vigilantes in Star City. Like I say, he goes after Emiko, he goes after Renee, and he's going after Oliver as well. So that's who I believe is leaving all these notes, is this guy. Who's going to be under the mask? I don't know. That could be really interesting. Maybe it is Stanley. Who knows? I mean, I doubt that quite a bit because the height difference, but I don't know. I wonder if they'll do a mystery with who's under the mask, or if they'll just say, oh, it's some random guy who hates vigilantes. Maybe it's the guy who was hunting Laurel. I don't know. Like, there's a lot of different questions, and we do find out that in episode 150, Beth Schwartz did say that we're going to be finding, or going to be introduced to a brand new character. A lot of us have theorized that it's going to be Dante, but it could be whoever is under the mask could be that character. So again, we've got a lot of interesting things going into episode 150, and I'm definitely very excited to see that, because this episode is shaping up to be something awesome. Overall, though, I really like this episode of Arrow. Like I say, I think David Ramsey, as his directorial debut, he did an absolutely tremendous job with this episode, and all the storylines were just really good. Like I say, the Suicide Squad thing, just planting the seeds. I can't wait to see what they do with that. Like I say, I think in episode 14, they're doing something with Suicide Squad. I think that's going to be the first big squad episode, so I'm excited about that. And again, fully throwing in a proper curveball with Curtis's death. I was very, very shocked by that. Laurel's backstory, just finally getting into that, finally delving into Laurel. And again, she was definitely the best part of this episode for me. And again, going back to Sins of the Father with Oliver, love that theme, just love tackling that. Although that storyline for me is a few seasons too late, I still really just thought it was a good idea. Just again, a bit too late for this season, but still, I think this is a great episode, and this was a great setup going into 150, which obviously we'll review next week. I'm very, very excited about that episode, and I think you should be too, because it's going to be a special one, especially for us Arrow fans. So thank you guys for watching this episode of DC Central. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss an upload, and I hope to see you guys again next time.